All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Big Flush. I am joined with my friend John Enot. John, how you doing?
I'm doing real good, buddy. How you doing today?
I'm pretty good. Eager to start talking about our usual political bullshit that we go through. 2020 midterm elections. We've got my friend Peter Klamka, who will be patching in from Vegas a little later in the episode to talk about cryptocurrency. He's a real guru on the subject. His club, More, only accepts cryptocurrency called More Coin because the club's called More. We'll find out a little bit more about that later. A little bit more about More. Um, he'll be talking about Bitcoin, cryptocurrency. But before that, John and I, my American friend, I'm Canadian, as you guys know, which makes our chemistry interesting. Um, the 2020 midterm elections are going to be a consistent theme until a year from November, but we're going to shake it up in the elements of what we talk about with regard to that election. Today, I wanted to focus on freedom of speech, bias, and the fact that nothing has really changed in the rhetoric of the Democrats this time around, at least not so far. Bernie saying the same thing. There's terrible income inequality in this country.
Terrible, terrible.
And, we know that, buddy. Among other different candidates, Buttigieg, Beta O'Rourke, I should say, hasn't really sunk in yet.
No.
And the issue of political heresy will also be the third and final segment for today.
Mhm.
So, John, what's been going on in the U.S.
God.
today?
The USA, I swear to God. Well, it's as far as I know, it's still standing. The Republic is strong. Things are great. It's one of those things where the news to me has started to sound like a real broken record. I mean, we're still dealing
Right.
with the whole Trump Russiagate fiasco, and we had the Mueller report come out, which pretty much said that they couldn't find him criminally responsible for anything, prosecutable or anything like that.
So,
And
why are they still talking about it on the left?
well, because they didn't get what they wanted, they didn't get their way. I mean, it's called almost like you brought up how the Democrats haven't learned anything since the last election cycle.
Appears that way.
Yeah, and I think it's very evident in what's going on because the American public, is pretty tired of all the bullshit, which is a good word that you used, because that's what it is. The whole reason Trump won in the first place is because the American public was tired of the bullshit. And most people don't believe there was any type of collusion. It really doesn't make any sense. It's pretty much been debunked. And the only people who won't let that narrative go are the people on the left that want it to be true regardless. And if you just look at, the facts of what happened and what has come out, there's more evidence to show that Hillary Clinton and her clan actually did collude with the Russians. But they won't go after her because, she's on their side, she's on their team, and you can't ever go against, somebody on your side or team. So, people are getting tired of it. And now that the Mueller report came out and it basically pretty much cleared him of anything criminally, now they won't let that go. Now they have to challenge the report. Now they're gonna we don't care.
They're also still going after Donald Trump Jr. I mean, he
yeah.
was in court last week.
Yeah, they're still going after him. I mean, they've decided basically, when he became president, it's like, okay, we're really pissed off. How the hell did he win? We can't believe he's the president. Oh no, he's a racist. He's a womanizer. He's just a big asshole. So we have to impeach him, and we have to do everything in our power to, slow him down, discredit him, get him out of office. We can't let him get any policies through. We can't do anything, just stalemate, and we just gotta put a chain around his neck and hold on tight because, we have 4 years till the next election. And they've been really consistent and they've stayed strong on that. I mean, so nothing's changed. Now that they can't really find any reason from the Mueller report, now they're trying to delve into his tax return. So now that's on the
Right.
front burner again. And, the whole thing with, the Democrats are meeting right now in California, in San Francisco. They're having their California Democratic meeting or not primary, but they have a big like convention.
Right. So it's like the Republican National it's not the Democratic National Convention, but
No,
it is a like a gathering,
yeah, it is
like
for this.
CPAC or
It's kind of
something.
like, yeah, for the state of California. So all the Democratic nominees for president are out there. Or I shouldn't say nominees, the candidates that want to run for president are out there right now, pitching their spiel to their left wing base, and people that are very progressive or farther to the left and center of left are still screaming, impeach, impeach, impeach.
Right.
And Nancy Pelosi has been kind of like holding back and not moving forward with proceedings because I think she's wise enough to know that it's not only political suicide for herself, but it's political suicide for the Democrats in the 2020 election. Because in order to impeach him, there's got to be some type of crime or a impeachable offense.
Right.
And to this day, I haven't seen one. I mean, there isn't one. You can't just say impeach because you're an asshole, we don't like you.
Right.
And they forget that 50% of the American public or thereabouts did vote for him, and that's why he's the president. Enough people voted for him to where the Electoral College in the states made him president. So,
right. And they're against the Electoral College too.
oh,
I haven't heard it lately, but I remember watching The View or Bill Maher, which, by the way, I like. I'm not condemning Bill Maher. He's probably my favorite late night show, political comedy. But they were all talking about, oh, fuck if it weren't for the, Electoral College, this would have never happened. But what, are you going to, like, shit on something that's been a tradition for so long just because it didn't work out in your favor this time? What about in the future when it's a Democrat who benefits off of that system?
And it's not just, a thing that didn't work out in your favor. It's the law. It's the Constitution of the United States. It's been that way since our inception, over 200 years ago. So it's in place for a reason. It's so, states like California or Texas or New York that has like population density,
Right.
they don't trump, not to use a pun word, they're not able to like dictate everything that happens in the country. It still gives places like Montana, Idaho, places in the rural middle America where they don't have big population densities, but they have to have a voice. They can't
Right.
just be lost, because if that was the case, it was just that way, the state of California or the state of Texas would basically dictate everything that happens in the United States. So the Electoral College isn't going anywhere anytime soon. It's in place for a reason. It does work. And, if things had been a little more balanced as far as what the Democrats were offering, and if they had put up a better candidate that actually, was in touch with the American public, they probably would have won. But they didn't do that, and they're going down the same road again. And while they're yelling and screaming and kicking and complaining that Trump's still in power and that they lost and it's all these bad things are happening, what they're doing is they're isolating the American public even further. And when this election cycle comes around, they're going to lose even bigger. And it's not because I like Trump. I don't like Trump. I mean, Trump is an asshole. He is a loudmouth. He is
Pig,
pig,
sexually.
full of himself. Yeah.
But he's not. The thing is, those things are true, but then they try and slip in things that are not necessarily true, like the racist thing. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
but I don't see him being a racist. I see him being somebody who actually is such a money person
Yeah.
that's always the bottom line. If he can make money with a black person, he'll have a relationship with them, a business
yeah.
relationship. He doesn't care. He just wants to make money with them.
No.
Same with gay people or
Mhm.
whatever. He was also back in the 1980s in Florida.
Yeah.
He basically got all of his rich friends together and boycotted the country clubs that did not allow black people, Jewish
Yeah.
people, or gay people.
Yeah.
And the other thing is when during his election, when Omar Mateen shot up the I forget what it was called, the club that got shot down in Orlando,
In
the gay
Orlando,
club by that Omar Mateen character.
Mm-hmm.
He was working with ISIS. Well, actually, no, he wasn't working with ISIS. He was trying to get in and garner favor with ISIS by doing that.
Yeah.
And ISIS just was like, oh, yeah, well, it's a gay bar that he shot up? Shit, we'll take it. We'll take the credit
Yeah,
for that.
Right.
But the Democrats, like Hillary Clinton, this was actually during the campaign, before the 2016 results came out. And her response was, it's gun control, and it's important to remember not to be Islamophobic because of his affiliation with ISIS and the fanatic wing, the most fanatic articulation of Islam that there is.
Yeah.
As if anybody is going to think that about, your average, everybody, here in Canada, we're a very diverse country. So as a matter of fact, I'd say white people are in the minority of my friends.
Mm-hmm.
And I have many Muslim friends, and I'm sure that none of them would support that. So why would Hillary Clinton bring up being Islamophobic in a context when it was an extreme religious situation with Omar Mateen,
Mm-hmm.
and not talk about that?
Well, that's because the Democrats never like to let a good tragedy go to waste, Zach. I mean, they've been doing this for years. And I mean, the Republicans do it to some extent, too.
Especially with when a girl gets raped and murdered by somebody who's in the country illegally, they always point the finger.
Oh,
at
yeah, they
Mexicans.
always point the figure. Obviously, the majority of, Mexican immigrants coming across the border aren't committing violent crimes. Just like most Muslims, that are here in America, that are living here, aren't terrorists and don't condone anything that they do, but they have this MO to sensationalize things because it sells papers, it sells, web traffic advertising, and politicians use it because they can get attention towards their issue and they can act like they care. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people in the country that are ignorant. I mean, I grew up in Dearborn, Michigan, which is the largest Arabic population outside of the Middle East.
Yeah,
and,
I've been there.
I grew up around Muslims, and they're the most terrific, awesome people. I mean, if you live in middle America, though, you
Right.
may never see a Muslim. I don't know how many Muslims are in Oklahoma or Montana.
You don't see a lot of things if you live in the
No, I'm sure
Midwest of
I'm sure you
America.
don't see a lot of things. So it's probably much easier for a politician or the media to say things and sensationalize and pander to people like that. And since they're ignorant, they don't know any better. They just believe what they see on TV, and then they vote that way, or their opinions and prejudices and biases get cemented into their brain because they're fed this bullshit.
Right.
And the Democrats are masters at it. And Hillary Clinton is probably the queen. I mean, Hillary Clinton, and I think she's, one of the most evil, vile human
Evil?
being. Oh, God, yeah. Evil, vile, terrible human being politician that's ever lived.
Most people would not understand why, though. I think there isn't enough visual evidence of that. I've
God.
read a lot from the the security staff at the White House. What am I talking about, national? The security staff, when Trump became president, regardless of his principles and policies and personality even, people were happy that they don't have to deal with the Clintons, the security staff.
No, she's horrible. I read a book, God, it's been years now, and it's probably still available, and name of the book is called American Evita. And I don't remember the author's name, but there's a couple chapters in that book that speak about how awful she was when she was the first lady of Arkansas, like how she treated the state police, in Arkansas that would be her bodyguards and
Christopher
security.
Anderson, yeah.
Ah, okay, yeah, Christopher Anderson. And then also, yeah, when she was in the White House, I mean, the poor Secret Service guys, I mean, a lot of them have come out and said that she was just horrible. She'd swear at him. She'd talk down to him and demean him. She's just a witch.
Right.
So, I mean, it's not like she's this wonderful human being to start with. I mean, she's definitely not.
Right.
But
a lot of people would not be aware of that.
Well, we can do a whole nother podcast just on Hillary Clinton, and that would fill up at least a whole show.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of stuff there, a lot of stuff.
I've read a lot of stuff, but there's just, I haven't really seen the evidence that we can really oust her, have her, well, she's not the president, but you could have her impeached from the Democratic Party, as it were, just have her removed because of what people would think of her, like how we got rid of Kevin Spacey, Roseanne Barr. Why hasn't that happened to her, given all this?
The reason
scandal?
is because she's Democratic royalty. She's like a queen.
Right.
if you want to look at I can use a Game of Thrones example, even though I'm a Games of Thrones illiterate. She's like one of the
Mother
top.
of Dragons.
Yeah, she's like a mother of dragons. She's like one of the granddaddy mothers of dragons. So they can't, throw one of their own on the sword at that high of a level, because then the whole infrastructure will look like it's corrupt, because she's been, you know, involved and intertwined with all of it for so many years. But I mean, just the email server thing. I mean,
Hmm.
that's a crime, what she did. And that was just the FBI just blew it off. They didn't follow through and prosecute her, even though the report came out and said, yeah, what she did was illegal. But it's probably something that we would never prosecute anyway. So let's just blow it off. So that's one, example of a crime that she's committed. And there's people that have been run out of Hollywood, run out of their jobs for just saying a misstatement.
Right.
Show me the crime that Trump has committed. And again, I'm no fan of Trump, but show me his crime to impeach him. Hillary Clinton's got a clear crime she committed, and they just don't care because she's one of them.
It's not only that, but I mean, that's a microcosm of the problems with the Democratic Party right now and their bias and their lack of willingness to criticize themselves or be introspective in any way. There's a bit of a ice age going on with their ideology, because in the last election run in 2016, Bernie Sanders and Hillary were basically saying the same things that Bernie Sanders, Joe Biden, Beta O'Rourke, Beto, what I call him, Beta,
Beto.
and Buttigieg, they're all saying basically the same stuff that they did last time, because they haven't had a bubbling cauldron of ideas making something new since last time. So history is going to repeat itself, I think.
Yeah, and I think
in
it's
2020.
it's going to repeat itself even harder. And I I'm a little sadistic, but I think election day 2020, the best thing to watch the following day will be The View.
Well, they'll probably do a live evening edition of The View like they did last time.
Yeah.
So you can look up Joy Behar's, like, The View election meltdown, I think is this what you would search for on YouTube,
Uh-huh.
where she is just flabbergasted at what's going on. Rachel Maddow was the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
I got to tell you, those moments on YouTube where they show like the election meltdown, people's immediate reaction.
Yeah.
Because when Trump was elected, I went to sleep. As soon as they started saying like, holy crap, he's actually winning, these different states. And I remember being surprised and thinking to myself, I'm going to go to bed, but I am putting money on it that Donald Trump is going to be president by morning. What is the media going to say? How are the Democrats going to react?
Yeah.
I didn't like that Trump was elected president.
Mm-hmm.
I've learned all this stuff about Hillary Clinton since talking to you.
Oh.
I've always known a few things, like she went to a fundraiser in some small Midwest town and is caught on tape saying, "Oh God, there's no fucking money here."
Yeah.
To wonder for people. Have you heard about that?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So, but that never leaked into the mainstream. Also, last time we were talking about the crimes of Hillary Clinton that go not only unpunished and unacknowledged. With Donna Brazile,
Mm-hmm.
she helped her cheat.
Yeah.
In the debate against Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
So that's something that actually offends other Democrats, but still there isn't really a wide enough conversation or condemnation happening as a result of that.
Yeah,
It's
no,
weird.
it is very weird. I think people on the other side, aren't as militant or, everyday people.
What do you mean the other side?
Well, if you're
Conservatives?
if you're on the conservative side or the right side, or if you're just an everyday person, I mean, you're not going to take time out of your life to, follow your congresspeople around and demand that they, impeach or impugn or prosecute Hillary Clinton. I mean, but it seems like, people that are really radicalized on the left, I mean, they'll do that the opposite way for far less. Hillary Clinton has said so many things over the course of history since she's been in the power establishment. I mean, if you look into, things that she's done with the Russians, if you look at things she's done when she was Secretary of State, overseeing and selling, uranium to Russia, which why would we sell uranium to anyone that would be an adversary of any kind whatsoever so they can build better nuclear bombs to kill us? I mean, that's the most ridiculous thing ever. Um, the email server thing really is trivial compared to some of the things she's done. And like I said, we could do a whole podcast on that and come with some research stuff so we could, really, really bring a lot of it to light. But it's
Right.
definitely there. She's horrible.
Well, I remember Christopher Hitchens was a pretty, like, one of the only people I knew of who was deeply critical of the Clintons.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about how they never met a donor they didn't like.
Yeah.
For
Mm-hmm.
example, her support for LGBT rights
Mm-hmm.
here in America, in the U.S., but her actions with countries that mistreat and even murder homosexuals legally
Mm-hmm.
says a different
Yeah.
thing about her, really.
Yeah. No, she doesn't care about anybody but herself. I mean, that's just the way herself, her family, her daughter, her friends. Outside of that,
Right.
I mean, we could do a whole podcast on what has transpired in Haiti and the money that the Clinton Foundation supposedly raised for Haiti, but then Haiti never got any of it. I mean, and Haiti's still a terrible, place since the hurricane came through and
Right.
devastated everything. And all these billions of dollars that the Clinton Foundation raised, you know, very little of it has gone to help these people. So where's the money?
Right.
You know, how rich do you need to be? How much power do you need to have? And
Well, she's a career politician. She's very wealthy,
oh
but
yeah,
she's never really worked in the private sector, as far as I understand,
yeah, and
which is
that
creepy.
and that's one of the problems with American politics is that you go into it and you could be a modest person or a successful person, but then you come out of it and you're a multi-millionaire, and
Hmm.
it's crazy. I
Is
mean,
that what? Don't you think that's probably one of the motivations to get into politics?
oh,
Why would you want to be a politician unless there's something in it for you? Really, it's
yeah,
a lot
no,
of work.
absolutely. It's a lot of work. It's long hours. You're away from your family in Washington. So, I don't know why anybody would want to get into it. I mean, there are people that,
For the money.
are do-gooders and they want to make a difference. But I think once you get inside, you see very quickly, you learn very quickly that you really can't make a difference because the infrastructure is too strong and set against you.
Right.
And I think what happens is after you're in there for about a year and it's wore you down, then all of a sudden, well, it's like, I really gave this my best shot. It's too big for me. I'm just one person from a district, in Delaware or wherever you're from. And then the money looks really, really good. So, everybody else is getting rich here. And, you know, I love my family. I should get rich while I'm here too, because who knows how long it's going to last.
Right. I'm trying to imagine the thought process, how people justify taking money like that
Ah, well.
when they're claiming to intend to invest that to make society better, but they just
Yeah.
pocket it. And there's a lot of examples where a lot of people voted for example, like you talk about Barack Obama. I
Mm-hmm.
love Barack Obama. I was really happy that he became president. I remember he came to Prague when I was living there, and I went to see him speak, and he was just such an eloquent orator.
Mm-hmm.
But he did not really, as far as the numbers look, improve things for the African American community, which he
Oh,
was
yeah.
supposed to be his number one priority.
Yeah, no, he didn't do anything for them at all. And, that's very clear to see. And there's a lot of prominent black leaders have come forward since he left office and have
Right?
said just that. So, politicians say one thing and do another. I mean, it's not new in politics, and all sides do it. And I always tell you, I'm not to be conspiratorial, but I believe that there are really no Republicans or Democrats or right or left in Washington at the Washington level. They're all
Like
on
the
the
deep
same team.
state.
Yeah, the deep state, or however you want to say it. They're all on the same team.
Hmm.
They're big money people. Um, they're corrupted by the lobbyists and the money that are there. So, they say what they need to say to get reelected and to pander to their base. But then at the end of the day, they're all eating together at the same country clubs and
Mhm.
golfing together, and they're friends. And sometimes, I'll watch C-SPAN and I'll watch like a congressional hearing, like they were having one not too long ago. I'm trying to remember the subject of it, but anyway, somebody was kind of accusing one of the members of the committee kind of being like a racist, and he shot back to the committee leader, who's a Democrat, and he was saying, we have been, me personally, you're a Democrat, I'm a Republican, but we've been on this same committee for 20 years. We've dined together, we've done this together. You know my character, and I will not sit here and be referred to as, being racist whatsoever. We've worked on this legislation and this legislation. And, the committee leader looked back and he's like, you're right. I know your character. And, Mr. So and so, you need to, refrain from making those remarks, and you need to apologize and restate that because that's not true. And it's like you can tell they're all friends.
Right.
So what you see on TV is just a smokescreen. It's an illusion. It's a TV show.
But Maxine Waters, is it Maxime or Maxine?
Maxine.
With an N, Maxine. I always call her Maxine. Maxine Waters. She, with her whole threatening, or not the threatening, but she, remember how she said, if you see any of the people from this administration in a restaurant or
Yeah.
out socially, harass them, basically, was the gist of what she told them to do.
Yeah.
And they went after, what's her name, Sarah Huckabee Sanders.
Oh, yeah.
Not that I like her personally. Obviously, I think she's a bit of a Wookiee. But I would definitely not want to. I wouldn't have had it happen to her like that, where she got kicked out of some restaurant because of what a politician, like a call to arms. That's like Kristallnacht shit.
Yeah.
That's like Goebbels, telling people to go out and loot people's property and interfere with their private lives. Tucker Carlson also had people outside of his house protesting, and the guy's got, I think he has small children.
Yeah. No, that's serious bullshit. And there's people on their side that would argue that, well, if you say these things, then you have to be responsible. It's like I was having a debate with somebody over the weekend, and we were talking about free speech. And first of all, this girl was like, I believe in free speech, but there really shouldn't be all kinds of free speech because there's some things that you shouldn't be able to say. Like,
then you don't believe in free speech.
Yeah, like what if you're a Nazi? That's bullshit. Nazis shouldn't be allowed to say this and that. And I said, well, you know what? The whole reason we have free speech is to protect people who have unpopular speech. Free speech is not to protect those who say things that everybody like and agree with. Free speech is for the exact opposite, for the one person in society that says the most foul, fucked up thing. They still have the right to say it. And then she's like, well, yeah, you're right, though. Okay, they got the right to say it, but then they also need to be responsible for what they say. So if they say something inflammatory, they ought to, know that they can get the shit beat out of them. They're responsible. There's ramifications for saying things. So yeah, go ahead and say it, but be prepared to get beat down because I'll come at you with a baseball bat.
They have no idea how fascist-like they are.
And
They're
then
the first to point the finger at somebody for being a racist and compare them to Hitler or be a Nazi, but they don't even know what Hitler and the Nazis were all about. They are absolutely, if they lived, that person who you were talking about, I don't know her personally, but I know her ilk. I know people my age who basically think that they know something because they have the access to the internet. The information age enables them to have that access, but they don't have a deep understanding of it.
No.
So looking Hitler up on Wikipedia and then reading is vastly different to reading a book by Hitler by, like, for example, Scherer. William Scherer wrote a history of the Third Reich, the rise and fall of the Third Reich. You read that book, you'll have a very deep and profound understanding of it rather than looking on Wikipedia and thinking that you've got this compact pill that took care of everything.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a bit of a problem with the mentality now because they don't see that they're just like those people back then. If they were living in 1933, they would all be Nazis.
Yeah, and she's young. I mean, she's probably 23, 24 years old, so I don't know if that qualifies as being a millennial, but millennials don't read. Millennials don't know history.
Right.
Well, I mean, I don't even think they teach history correctly in in the schools in America anymore. Anyway, so
Well, I remember being in university, taking film courses where a lot of times the context under which a film we would be watching or analyzing or doing a case study on, for example, if we did Nazi propaganda and we did Leni Riefenstahl's Triumph of the Will, the historical context and background that they give in the class or that the professor gave, was so insufficient to understanding how the propaganda machine in Nazi Germany worked. Most of the people didn't know anything about Nazi Germany. So don't bring up a political element to it when it's a film course, for example, and expect people to just know what you're talking about. Because the real problem was that, yes, the Nazis made terrible propaganda, but Triumph of the Will, that movie was a sort of one-off thing. The real propagandists in World War II were the Soviets, because that communism was what really needs a lot of shoring up with propaganda.
Oh, yeah.
Because when you just say everybody is equal, well, after a little while, you start to realize that it's not actually true.
No.
I shouldn't have an equal opportunity to Colin Kaepernick to play football because he's a much better football player than me. You know, he's superior, and that's just something I would have to deal with.
Yeah.
But I would need propaganda to tell me that it's that everybody is equal. Anyway, I'm getting a little bit off topic here. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
With regard to the lack of information that people are ingesting or taking in, absorbing.
Yeah.
But they think they know a lot more, and that's a big problem with my generation. And hopefully that'll change somehow. There's got to be something in this world that'll make people,
I don't know,
realize their own ignorance.
I'm not really optimistic about it. I mean, they're certainly not getting it in the classroom. They're not getting it at home, so I don't know where they're going to get it from. They're definitely not going to get it from, television. But it is really sad now that, the words like socialism and communism and Nazism and things are thrown around
like it's nothing.
Yeah, so casually, because there's no socialist society that has ever worked. And the societies in Europe and in Scandinavia that have aspects of socialism, they have very specific aspects, and they also have very specific aspects of capitalism. So they're mixed societies. Socialism can't work.
You mean full-blown Marxist socialism where they have the government has strict control over what corporations do, or maybe even the corporations are being nationalized, which is like full-blown communism.
Yeah, it can't work, and same with communism. And one of the big reasons is because a dictator or a group of dictators or rulers, I mean, who makes the rules and who decides? And absolute power corrupts absolutely. Money corrupts absolutely. And once people get into power, they stay in power. It's not like you're going to have a democratic election for a socialist dictator. I mean, that makes no sense. And they do whatever they want. And it's just a scary proposition. And if you study history, if you've read any books at all on, the history of the world since the turn of the century, you should have learned some lessons. And you would see that the things that they're throwing around casually nowadays are they're ridiculous. But it's scary. It's scary that they don't even know. And I wish that every millennial, or any person for that matter, that thinks socialism is a better way, or communism, or a mix of the two, they really should have to go live in a country that still exists on the planet and see what that's like, and then come back 6 months, 18 months, 2 years later and tell me if you still feel that way. Because I really would love to hear what they have to say after having an experience like that.
Well, I can't tell you how many people I've met that were, when I was in university, that said communism was a good idea. Of course, almost all of my professors did. I was in the faculty of social sciences. I think something like 1/3 of the professors there would describe themselves as Marxists, which is pretty extraordinary.
Yeah.
Considering they're supposed to be the smart people in this conversation or in that situation who understand the 20th century, the fact that every attempt to have that, to overthrow the bourgeoisie and replace it with a proletarian utopia, it's never worked. It's always taken over by thugs in the very pattern-like way that repeats itself, whether it was in Russia, whether it was in Cuba,
Yeah.
whether it was in North Korea or China, like with the Great Leap Forward. People don't even realize the death toll, the
Oh,
number of people
yeah.
that had their lives cut short with a little help from the
Mhm.
government
Yeah.
actually is higher than the number of people who were murdered by the Nazis,
Yeah.
which is roughly 10 million civilians, 6 million Jews, and 4 million, like a
Yeah.
hodgepodge of homosexuals, Roma people, disabled people, and political opponents.
Yeah.
You know, that's 10 million, but the number is way higher with communism
Oh, yeah.
because of the purges, because of, well, one of the problems with communism that proved fatal for so many people was that if you look at Pareto distribution, something like a very small percentage of any category of productivity, like say making toothbrushes,
Mhm.
10% of the people of all the people who are making toothbrushes are producing well over 50% of the toothbrushes.
Mhm.
Do you get me?
Yeah, yeah.
That's like a Pareto distribution.
Mhm.
Introduction to that. But with communism, they eliminate those people because everyone's supposed to be equal.
Right.
So then what do you get? You get famines.
Mhm.
And all of these, and a lot of it was lied about because they
Yeah,
have
sure.
ministries of truth in those societies that eliminate history and rewrite it.
Yeah.
So that's another scary thing. Even the access to the knowledge of what it was like under communism is not accessible to us.
Yeah. And here's the thing that the millennials have been sold, this false bill of goods, either by their parents or their schooling
Yeah.
or society, is that somehow life must be made to be fair for everyone. And I'm sorry, folks, but life is not fair. There's no such thing. There's no such thing in any aspect of life. I mean, somebody is always going to be a little faster, a little skinnier, a little better looking. Uh, Maybe their family's going to be more prominent than yours. Maybe you're going to be very good at like mechanical skills. You know, anything can happen. Maybe your father is in a bad car accident and is killed, but mine lives to be 90. There's no aspect of life that is fair. And I think a lot of this whole movement towards socialism and towards, these far left progressive, things that people scream about is it's inequity. It's like things are supposed to be fair. Everybody's supposed to make a living wage. And then, okay, that's just the start. Now, once everybody's making a living wage, now, how come this guy gets to be a millionaire or a billionaire, but I don't, and I only make $35,000 or $40,000 a year? You know, eh,
The point is, people are confusing equality of opportunity with equality of outcome.
oh yeah, absolutely.
Everyone should have, I think the fairest thing we can hope for realistically is an equality of opportunity. Nobody can discriminate you based on race, gender,
No,
sexual orientation.
no.
But after that, some people are going to be better at the job than you are,
Sure, sure.
and that's,
And they're pushing for a way that, okay, everybody has equality opportunity, and then you give it your best, and some people excel, some people don't excel. It's like, well, it's not fair that some people don't excel. It's not fair that some people should be left behind or be poor, and sorry, Charlie, somebody needs to stand up and tell these people, I'm sorry. It's just the way it is. I mean,
mhm.
no, there's no magic solution to it. It's called reality. Some people, they engineer their lives, a little smartly. Maybe they keep their expenses low, they go to college, they do it in a way where, it might take them longer to go and they don't incur a lot of debt, so they start in a good place and they get a decent job. Some people are pregnant by the time they're 15 and pregnant again by the time they're 17, so by the time they're of adult age to go to school, they've got, two kids, maybe they're unwed, maybe they both have a different father, and now you have child care issues, cost issues. That person is at a tremendous disadvantage
Right.
than somebody that didn't, start their life that way. So whose fault is that? Is that their fault personally? Or is that society's fault? Or is that my fault or your fault that we didn't do something to plan for people like this so we can still grab them up in our safety net and bring them with us, despite, their poor personal choices or poor parental guidance. Maybe a kid at that age didn't have parental guidance, and maybe it's a societal problem, but it's still nothing that we can just magically wave a wand at and
Right.
fix. So what do you do about that? I don't have the answer, but there's got to be some type of personal responsibility, and somebody that starts off that way, they need to expect that maybe you're gonna have to work two jobs to make ends meet,
Mm-hmm.
because you have to pay a babysitter now for childcare. You have to feed more mouths than yourself. So your life is going to be a little more difficult. You're going to have more hardship. It's going to be harder to get to the same place, especially as quickly as this person over there that didn't have all that.
Right.
And the people that will come and pander to them and say, no, no, it's just not fair. It doesn't matter what personal choices you made or what situations you got yourself into. It's not fair. You need to be over here too. So we need to do things for you. And we're going to do things for you if you vote for me, that will
Mm-hmm.
just wave a magic wand over you and make your life all better. And then you'll be able to buy a new Cadillac just like this person. And you'll be able to have a big house just like this person, and we'll find other ways to like offset the cost of all that for
Mm-hmm.
you, because that's what our side of the fence does for people like you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they've sold them this whole thing, and they've bought into it because they don't know any different.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I know that with the Republicans, they're all about the sort of personal responsibility thing,
Mm-hmm.
which is in Canada and in Europe, I know that has never been something that we really pushed for.
Mm-hmm.
It's always, and people even in Europe look at America as like a harsh country for that,
Well,
because they say, oh, well, they don't have assistance back, before Obamacare, like it was all, oh, it's just insurance companies. They let corporations exploit people.
yeah.
And that makes America kind of a cold country in terms of the like emotionally cold country.
Well,
So
I don't know. I mean, this is going to be kind of harsh to say. Maybe it's because I'm a harsh American. But I mean, there's that old saying of, like the jungle and in the animal kingdom, it's survival of the fittest.
Hmm.
And we are animals. I hate to say it. We're
Americans or human beings in general?
Well, human beings in general.
Yeah.
Americans
Well, we
probably
are
more
primates.
so. Yeah, I mean, but philosophically speaking, there has to be some element of that. And I don't know how you can just set up a society where personal responsibility isn't part of it.
Mhm.
And again, some people are just born in unlucky circumstances. Maybe your father was, left your mother, when you were 2 months old or before you were born. Your poor mother had to raise you on her own. Maybe because the stresses of her life, she got into drugs or trouble. So you had a really, really hard, go of it in life. And then by the time you were young, you got pregnant and whatnot. But by the time you're on your second or third child out of wedlock, at what point is society still supposed to hold you in their arms and just say it's okay, just go live your life, just be who you
Mhm.
are? I mean, that's how you make the whole boat sink. I mean, you can
Yeah.
only take so much lead and dead weight into a boat before it's going to sink.
Right.
And I think society is kind of teetering at that point.
Right. Well, that is a very interesting perspective, John. Not to change the subject for our next segment, but today we are getting Peter Klamka to talk with
Yes.
us. I think that is coming up soon.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to talk about Bitcoin and his cryptocurrency,
Mm-hmm.
which is an unbiased currency, unlike the politicians that we were just talking about and the voters who don't want to hear anything against what they think
Yeah.
or any disagreement. Before we bring Peter in, um, with regard to cryptocurrency, we were reading about Jordan Peterson, and how he has had, I think it was his Patreon account taken away.
Mm-hmm.
Sam Harris, and I forget his name, but the guy, his YouTube channel is Sargon of Akkad. He also was deplatformed on Patreon
Yeah.
and is turning to more cryptocurrency, which is
Mhm.
unbiased as a way of, staying afloat, as it were.
Sure. Yeah.
But for now, let's just talk a little bit about what Bitcoin really is. It's based off of blockchains. Do you know what a blockchain is, John?
Yeah, I sure do.
What is a blockchain?
Blockchain is a series of trustable computers in various parts of the world. So blockchain is like a trust. So all these transactions happen and they're encrypted, and then they're written to a computer, which then the other computers look to, and they verify that all the information is correct and accurate. And as soon as they see that it is, and they all give their their electronic approval, and this happens in milliseconds. Once it's trusted, it gets added to the blockchain,
Mm-hmm.
and then that stays there, and then they all look for the next thing to come along, and as soon as that's trusted, it's in the blockchain, and it eliminates, the middleman for transactions. And a good example might be, like for real estate transactions. Currently, in the traditional system in America, you use a real estate agent. The real estate agent looks online and finds your property, and then they put together the paperwork, and then you have to send things to the title company, and the title company has to say, okay, we'll say the title of the house is clear so we can go forward. Then the bank has to look at the person's finances and approve the mortgage. All that stuff would be eliminated, with the blockchain, because the blockchain will already know if you have the funds or not. The blockchain will already know if the property has a clear title or not, because all these different databases will talk to each other. So they'll know in real time. So you might not need a real estate agent ever. You might just see a house that comes up for sale on a website that shows house listings. They'll be like, okay, I want that house. How much is it? Okay, it's 209,000. I think I qualify for it. Let me, put in an offer. The guy on the other end says, I accept your offer. Let's see what the blockchain says. Transaction goes through. If everything works and the blockchain says, yep, title's clear, you have enough money, credit's good enough, okay, we approve it instantly. Your title is transferred and you own the house, and it can happen in minutes.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
all very fascinating to me. I know very little about crypto, which is why we're going to get Peter in soon to tell us. Peter isn't such a political guy. He's not going to go on like we do about the elections or anything, but he has a lot to say and inform us about as an insider with crypto. So, are we getting him soon?
Yeah,
John?
I think we have. I think we have Peter. Yeah, we have Peter on the line.
There we go. Mr. Klamka, good to see you, my friend. I wanted to ask you a little bit about how you actually got into cryptocurrency, just the genesis of it for you.
Sure. Great to be here with you, Zach, today here in beautiful Las Vegas. I got into cryptocurrency in 2014. I was working at an investment fund in New York City and was approached by two aspiring entrepreneurs who came in the office one day to give basically a pitch looking for a seed stage investment. They were, I think, Columbia or NYU students, and they wanted to talk about digital money. The two partners of the firm that I worked for dismissed the idea and went off to an overpriced lunch somewhere in Midtown. I listened to the pitch, thought it was interesting, and again, dismissed the idea that computer money would have any interest or any value beyond a niche audience. And more importantly, I didn't think that these two young men had the ability to scale or build a company that we wanted to invest in. But it was on my radar at that point. So that was my first exposure to crypto, Bitcoin, digital currency, was a pitch from two young entrepreneurs. Along the way, we heard more pitches. We saw more interest in the space, and we decided as a firm to make an investment in Bitcoin ATMs. We purchased a few, seeded a small ATM company on the East Coast, and did it as a test to see if anyone would buy this crypto money using these funny boxes.
How long has this technology been around for?
Well, Bitcoin, as we know it, was celebrated its 10-year anniversary this year.
Well, that's Bitcoin, but you own a nightclub chain called More, which has its own cryptocurrency. Could you tell me a little more about More?
Yes, so we fast forward several years to the launch of More. More is a collection of crypto-affiliated entertainment and nightclub destinations. Basically, you have to be a member of More to gain entry into one of our clubs, and membership is conveyed by the ownership of 5,000 More coins or More tokens.
So 5,000 coins or tokens. How much would that set me back in real finance?
The price of More fluctuates with the price of the market. So with Bitcoin at its top a few months ago, the membership fee was $15,000. Presently, the membership fee is about $1,000 for entry into the club.
And what is your main customer base at More?
Our main base is a male who is under 45, who is interested in nightlife, technology, and different types of entertainment.
But I also know that you have quite a few celebrities going to More. Any big names?
Part of the experience of More is interaction with, access to interesting evenings, interesting people, and world-recognized personalities. We've had 21 Savage, Shark Tank's Damon John, Cardi B, Migos, G-Eazy, NBA players, many guys from the UFC, and just a host of other interesting individuals, some of whom are happy to be recognized and some of whom value their privacy and just want to come to More and hang out for an unbothered evening.
Wow, there's a lot of people involved in this. I never knew that. How does one actually get involved? Like, how do you buy Bitcoin?
One usually buys Bitcoin through an online exchange. So there are a number of places online, and I'm speaking mostly for U.S. citizens, but this is true around the world, where individuals can simply open an account with an exchange, link a bank account, and start buying Bitcoin. There's also an ATM avenue to purchase Bitcoin, which in your local city you can go, put some money in a machine, download an app, a wallet, and the Bitcoin will reside on your phone. You can also buy it peer-to-peer. There are places like Local Bitcoin Online where you can meet someone and meet them at a restaurant, meet them on the corner, and transact buying Bitcoin.
Well, I realize that it's an intangible kind of currency and way of carrying out transactions, but isn't there like a card associated with your club, a membership card, and how does that relate to crypto?
Actually, More is having a membership card that our members will be able to have that you can use both as a payment mechanism and as a wallet for use in the club. That's specific. That's more specific as opposed to general Bitcoin. Although there are in different parts of the world payment cards that you can use to transact or spend Bitcoin.
So, I'm looking at Goldman Sachs' website here, and 10 years ago when Bitcoin came out, it was worth about $14 a coin. And just a couple weeks ago, this is 10 years later after its conception, it was about $3,800 for a coin. What are some of the reasons for the increase in its value since 10 years ago?
There's a number of different reasons. Awareness, that more people have become aware of Bitcoin. More people have seen that it's got utility. Some people speculate thinking that the value of Bitcoin will go up. Some have done it correctly. Some have done it incorrectly. Bitcoin was as high as $20,000 very recently and come back a little bit to $3,800. And some of it is the ability to use it. Some merchants accept it. People use it for various different things. And the fact that there's more of it in circulation and more demand has caused the price to go up. There's also a fixed amount of Bitcoin. 21 million is the maximum number of Bitcoin that will ever be produced, and that causes that causes Bitcoin to have a certain a scarcity value.
What kind of investors typically tend to find Bitcoin a lucrative investment?
Well, we don't really talk about investments. That's something that somebody should make their own independent decision. So I don't recommend that somebody go and buy Bitcoin. From a business standpoint, there's no reason why any business shouldn't accept Bitcoin. There's lower fees, there's no chargebacks, it opens your business up to a significantly larger number of customers, and there are a number of advantages with Bitcoin that you don't get with traditional fiat currency.
So you mentioned advantages and disadvantages, but there are different kinds of businesses with different needs and requirements. What kind of business would you think would be an ideal fit for Bitcoin commerce?
There's across the board advantages. Some of the advantages are that there are lower fees than traditional payment mechanisms. Traditional banking has certain fees, PayPal has fees, Venmo has fees, whereas Bitcoin all has fees, but they're not as significant as some of the other payment mechanisms. You also have more control. If I wanted to wire somebody money at 2 o'clock in the morning, can't be done. I have to go online or go into a branch, fill out some forms, wait till the bank approves it, and then the money gets transferred the next day. If I wanted to send you Bitcoin today at 5 o'clock in the morning, I don't need anyone's permission. I need your Bitcoin address, and I can send it to you, and in a matter of minutes, you'll have it. So it takes out the intermediary and the middleman and gives me more control and more freedom for use of my funds.
John and I like to talk politics here on this podcast. And one of the reasons we wanted to talk about Bitcoin and crypto was because there are a lot of political ramifications nowadays for stating your political opinions, especially, not that I agree with all or disagree with these people, especially if they lean in a more conservative or to the right position, like supporting Trump, for example, or just having ideas that are not part of the Democratic or liberal mainstream. Jordan Peterson, Sargon Akkad on YouTube. Many others have been deplatformed. Sam Harris. They've had their Patreon accounts shut down, and a lot of their finance and financial support that they get from their fans has been squashed. So they're turning to Bitcoin, Ethereum, and other means of finance that are less biased. Can you talk about that?
It doesn't really matter what political philosophy, religious affiliation, artistic preference that you have. Bitcoin gives you more control over both your spending and your audience. So if I walk into a Chase branch, Chase decides whether or not I get an account. Bank of America decides whether I get an account. And if at any time they decide they don't like me anymore, they close the account. And if they don't like what I'm doing, they can hold my funds for a little while until they decide that there isn't any more risk. There's none of that with Bitcoin. If I decide I want to make a donation, buy a product, buy a service, give someone money because I like them, I'm completely empowered to do so. I don't need anyone's permission but my own.
Where do you see the future of Bitcoin heading?
Bitcoin, I think, will be an integral payment mechanism around the world. It will be like MasterCard and Visa. It will be like cash. It will be like bank wires. I don't think it will ever replace any of the traditional payment mechanisms. It will certainly take market share from them, but it will definitely be a third or fourth option, especially there's a whole generation of Bitcoiners out there who are growing up, who are accustomed to using Bitcoin, and who will continue to take it on as they get older.
Hey, Peter, John here. I'm sure since you started doing this, you've had all kinds of different crazy things happen in your exploration into the Bitcoin world. Have you had any experiences or any things that stand out for you since you started doing your Bitcoin ATM business?
We don't have enough time in the day to talk about all of the interesting stories that happened to us while we were operating the Bitcoin ATM. The most obvious situation that occurred repeatedly was when individuals would call or email and ask what the 800 number was for the Bitcoin company because they deleted their wallet, because they forgot their password, because they sent Bitcoin to the wrong address, and could we call the 800 number and simply reverse the transaction. Of course, there is no 800 number. Using Bitcoin is like using cash. Once you spend it, it's gone. And if you make a mistake, that mistake can be very costly. Another time, the restaurant that was hosting one of our ATMs reached out to our customer service, and eventually they got back to me. And there was a 80-year-old lady in front of the Bitcoin ATM. She had put some money in, and of course she wanted to know why the coin didn't come out of the Bitcoin ATM machine. There's also questions about who makes Bitcoin. Did it come from Martians? Is there a factory where Bitcoin has been made? And where do I get a Bitcoin tattoo? All of these came about while we were operating the Bitcoin ATM machines. We operated them in various cities, especially here in Las Vegas. Very interesting people would go to an ATM looking for questions.
I knew it. I knew it had to be aliens in some factory somewhere making Bitcoin. It's the only thing that made sense. You told us off camera before we got started, Peter. You told us a story where a 15-year-old boy somehow got a hold of one of your more club memberships and came into one of your clubs. Can you tell us that story? I thought that was pretty humorous.
So there was a situation that we had recently where we don't see all of our members. So to buy a membership to more, you have to have an account, and then you have to purchase your coin. And then oftentimes the member will come to us and via email or phone, usually email, to set up their trip, whether it be to more Hollywood, more Las Vegas, more Miami. And so at one point, we had set up a weekend for a member, and it included a hotel suite, it included our complimentary limousines, it had included some dinner reservations, and to make the reservation, we had asked for some form of ID. And it turned out that this young man scanned a school ID, and he was 15 years old. And he was coming from another country, and of course you have to be 21 to get into more. And he was a little bit upset that he wasn't able. He said, "I'm a member. How come I can't get in?" Of course, you have to abide by the local laws, and the law says you got to be 21 to come and party at more.
Those damn local laws ruin everything. I remember being a kid and having fake ID, and we'd try to sneak into the movies or something like that, but not trying to get into a highfalutin, high-class club in Vegas, although that sure would have been a dream come true. I'm sure you have a lot of different people come through there, and I'm sure you get a lot of celebrities because it's such a visible, like high luxury thing. So can you tell us some of the celebrity interactions you've had at your more clubs since you've started running them?
Celebrity interactions are one of the most interesting parts of more, because there's such a level of curiosity about crypto, about they're running businesses too, and they are selling music, they're selling movies, they're selling merchandise, they're selling concert tickets, and they see fees, they see expenses, and they see costs. And they're all young. I mean, none of our celebrities that have been at more, 21 Savage, Migos, Cardi B, G-Eazy, up-and-coming artist Saweetie, they're all under 30. And so they're all looking for interesting ways to maximize their business. And so they leave more with an interest and understanding of how crypto might be able to help them going forward in increasing their profits, increasing their audience, or just an interesting way to market what they're doing.
But they, the celebrities you mentioned, they don't just hang out at the Vegas club. Like, where are the other clubs located?
There are more affiliated clubs around the country. more Hollywood is our primary location. We have more here in Las Vegas, a more affiliated club in Singapore, a more affiliated club opening next month in New York, Miami, and Dallas and Orange County.
So how many transactions, not to get too off topic, is the blockchain able to process, the Morecoin, as opposed to more traditional processing systems like Visa, MasterCard, et cetera?
Blockchain in general, or blockchain? So currently, Visa and MasterCard can still process more transactions than a blockchain. So that's one of the issues that the traditional payment processors all talk about is, you can't process, you can't scale the payment networks. Eventually, that'll be worked out.
Well, if something goes wrong with my Visa or MasterCard, I have somebody to call and hold accountable. Is there an agency or a body to point the finger at if things go wrong with crypto?
Crypto is cash, and so you have to be as responsible with crypto as you are with cash. So you can send crypto to the wrong address. You can delete your wallet. You can forget your password. And if any of those things happen, it doesn't exist anymore. It's in the wind. Same with hacking. So there's always, don't leave all of your crypto on an exchange. There are ways to store your crypto that are safer than leaving crypto on an exchange. But the general rule of thumb that I tell people is you should treat crypto the way you treat cash or a 6-month-old baby. It has to be protected violently, stored, hidden, and taken care of, because someone will take care of it for you if you don't.
Well, there seem to be different brands of crypto. There's Bitcoin, Ethereum, and many others. As far as security goes, is there any one of those which is probably the best at security and therefore the most desirable?
So preference is a matter of is a personal question. Bitcoin is obviously the one that everyone knows. Bitcoin is the coin that started the coins that you've just mentioned, and Bitcoin is the overwhelming market leader when it comes to market cap, although I'm not so sure that's a great way to discuss a coin, because it's comparing it to a stock as opposed to a currency. But Bitcoin is the standard by which everything else is measured, and everything else is compared to.
And what are some of the alternatives to Bitcoin?
Well, so the More coin, right? So More essentially is our proprietary coin that is used to indicate a membership in a particular club. There are thousands of other coins that do different things. Some are privacy. Some are called stable coins that are linked to a dollar. Some are used for other types of utility purposes. It all depends on the utility. Some are used just for speculation. Some are used for privacy, and some are used for different use cases around the world. It all depends. It's sort of it all depends on the community and the individual use of the particular coin. Just like there are different credit cards, different banks, different payment mechanisms. It's simply another way to exchange value among consumers and producers.
If I wanted to venture out into Bitcoin or cryptocurrency in general, with very little knowledge about how all that works, if I wanted to play the stock market, I could get a stockbroker. If I wanted to, have somebody manage or advise me on my money, I would get a financial advisor. Is there some kind of sector in the crypto world where people just specialize on advising people?
There are individuals who manage a person's Bitcoin. You can't deposit your Bitcoin at Merrill Lynch or Charles Schwab presently and have a account manager. I guess Charles Schwab doesn't have account managers, but a Merrill Lynch or a Goldman Sachs, and you can't say, here's my Bitcoin, please manage it for me. There are crypto hedge funds. There are individuals who manage crypto, but in general, it doesn't have the stockbroker financial infrastructure yet that stocks and bonds do. But of course, it's only been around a significantly shorter period of time compared to traditional finance. So is it coming? Probably. But I also don't think that a 50-year-old guy that's been managing Google stock and treasury bonds would be the good guy to manage my crypto. I think you need somebody who is of the crypto space managing crypto as opposed to the traditional finance asset managers.
Is there an ageist element to this? Like, do you need somebody who's younger and more tech savvy and more of a pioneer to the technology?
Could be a younger tech savvy person, could be an older person who comes from a finance and cryptography background and that's all they do. It could be anyone. That's the interesting thing about crypto is you never know where the best ideas are going to come from, and most likely they're not coming from the traditional spaces. They're coming from different backgrounds, and crypto is significantly more inclusive than traditional finance.
Is it possible to have more wealth in crypto than actual traditional finance? Do you know anybody whose digital wealth exceeds their traditional finance?
Crypto is like Fight Club. If you have it, you don't talk about it.
Right.
So there's popular articles in Forbes and crypto blogs and things like that speculating. We have a lot of interesting members in More, and we don't talk about who our members are. And we have members who have $5,000 worth of crypto and allegedly hundreds of millions of dollars worth of crypto, but we don't pry.
And we have no intention of doing so. Peter, thanks so much for joining us today. We learned a lot, and next time I'm over in Vegas, I'll give you a shout out.
Thank you, Zach. It's great.
All right.
What a wise guy.
Yeah, man, he's a really interesting person. He's been involved with so many different things, not just, the crypto, but he's also involved with, he's been involved in modeling, the stock market. Not him being a model, he was managing talent and mixed martial arts.
Oh,
has
wow.
a lot of connections in UFC. As a matter of fact, I think a lot of when he was talking about the clientele,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of them are in the UFC. But he mentioned Cardi B and many others.
Oh, boy.
It's a pretty widespread thing now. I didn't realize that so many high-profile people are.
Well, yeah, I mean, it makes sense because, high-profile people make a lot of money, and when you make a lot of money, especially in either one of our countries, the taxes are really high. So if you can find a way to anonymously make that money and keep it out of that sphere, I think that that's probably really looks really, really beneficial or
Right.
appealing to them.
Yeah. And I mean, people who are very successful, like the people he was just mentioning, don't take risks or fuck around when it comes to their money.
No, unless they're like a sports athlete that's broke by the time they retire. But short of that, I think people now that are in those realms, entertainment and sports, have started to kind of learn their lessons, I think, over seeing other people's failures with that. So I think it's starting to make more and more sense. And I think these people probably have financial advisors. And hey, if I wasn't advising somebody, I'd be like, yeah, put it in Bitcoin. Why not?
Mm-hmm.
As long as it's stable and they're not going to lose it all. And it is kind of, freaky. Think about that. I mean, if you have your Bitcoin envelope or token on your cell phone, and then you drop it in the ocean or the thing fries and you can't recover it, your money is gone. Like, it's gone. So that aspect of it kind of freaks me out a little bit because that would be my luck.
Mm-hmm. Oh, same here. But I'm just surprised that a lot of people are putting faith in this. I didn't realize how widespread it was.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like you mentioned, it's a great way of not paying taxes, as it were,
And it's funny where it's popping up because there's a little Detroit neighborhood not too far from where I live. It's called Hamtramck.
Yeah.
And it's just this small little, it used to be called Pole Town because it was all Polish immigrants that lived there that migrated at the turn of the century, and a lot of them worked for the automotive factories. So it was kind of like a blue-collar neighborhood area, and the houses were small, and and the area over time has kind of become a little dilapidated, and a lot of people moved out when the automotive industry, went to crap here. But there's still a big immigrant element in that community. And now the immigrants are more Yemenis or Pakistani or Indian. And there's some big markets in the area because, unfortunately, in some of these areas, big chain grocery stores or Walmarts, they don't set up shop. So the people have to rely on, small party stores and small little markets. And I was going over there to visit a friend recently, and I pulled in because it was kind of a warmer day, and I was thirsty. I wanted to go in and get a, an iced tea to drink. So I went in, and as I went up to pay for it, lo and behold, I looked to the left of me, and here's this shiny, brand new looking Bitcoin ATM in the middle of this little podunk, shitty party store in the middle of this little blue collar, I want to say shitty town, but dirty, dilapidated. Like it's not an area. It's a very low income area. All immigrants. So I'm thinking that the immigrants probably have figured out that this is a good way to send money back home, or for people back home to send them money. Because for it to pop up in an area like this, you'd never ever think about it. The fact that Bitcoin could find its way to a place like this.
Right. Well, I still haven't really seen one around where we are now in southern Ontario. I'm sure Toronto has many, many of them.
I'm not even sure if there's a directory where you could find out where Bitcoin ATMs are located.
There is. I believe on the Bitcoin website, they have some kind of a global map where you can find Bitcoin ATMs. But even then, I don't even think it's absolutely vital to have one. You could just do the transactions on your device.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I did download the Bitcoin wallet on my phone, I don't know, a year or so ago, just for shits and giggles. And, when all the speculation was going on in Bitcoin, I think got up to $14,000 or $16,000 US per coin.
Well, $16,000. Yes.
Yeah, it got really, really high. And I thought, well, I better look into this. And of course, then at that point, I'd have to buy it fractionally. But yeah, it's too late. Now it's back way down.
Well, do you know what it is? Like roughly? Is it more than $5,000 for a coin?
I'm not sure. At one point, I think it went down to 4 something, but I haven't checked it recently. So it could be still there. It could be a little lower. I don't think it's gone back up, though. It certainly hasn't gone up like it was before.
Okay. So as far as Bitcoin's worth, I think last month when I checked it out, it was 3,500 or something for one Bitcoin. And today in US dollars, it's $8,756.37.
Wow. So it's on the way back up again.
Oh, way back. And now consider this. 10 years ago when it came out, as Peter and I were discussing, both of us, I should say, talking to Peter, it was $14 for one coin.
Wow.
If you bought 10 coins, let's say you bought 1,000 coins for $14K.
Yeah.
All right. And if you had 1,000 coins today, it would be basically $8,756,000.
Wow. So why didn't we buy it at 14?
Because we didn't know about it.
We didn't. And it's funny because it really hasn't been broadcast in the news that it's been on the way up. So
That's fishy.
It's very fishy. It's kind of quietly been creeping up. What's up with that?
Yeah. Well, I think that most people don't know enough about it. Like I find people are either very well informed about it or not at all.
Yeah. No. That's totally true.
So, and it is really fishy that people don't like talking about it in the media,
or
promoting it or having ads for it. I don't know, because then again, it's not a product; it's a currency.
Right.
And it kind of blurs the line on that, though.
But yeah, you would think the financial news networks and stuff would make a bigger deal, at least that it's on its way back up like that significantly.
Right. Yeah, because that is cryptocurrency, I think, is to finance what social media was to interpersonal communication, like a radically massive thing that changed the world.
Sure.
Anyway, so it was a really good discussion with Peter. I really liked learning about the lack of bias in crypto. And I think it's really interesting for us because a lot of people are turning towards crypto as a way of eliminating political bias.
Yeah.
Having their bank account
Yeah.
frozen, or because even if it's not politics, if somebody earns a living by being a stripper or a prostitute,
Sure,
legal
sure.
prostitute,
Right.
somebody might have a grudge against that.
Yeah.
And, well, it's interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see where all of this goes.
Yeah, it definitely
Uh,
will. I mean, it's definitely going to stay in the forefront for some time, especially with the politically incorrect culture, because, it is scary. I mean, we were talking earlier about how, you know, political pressure or one side of the aisle has the way to like kind of stifle, information or whatnot. Um, but when that spills over into someone's finances and their ability to make a living, I mean,
mhm.
if you have far right views or far left views or anything in between, I mean, that's your private business. So that should not affect, like, even if people are offended and they don't like what you're saying and they try to come after you, that should not ever be in the realm of a corporate entity being able to say, well, we don't like your opinion, so we're not going to let you, do commerce. We're going to stop your ability to do commerce.
Right.
And a lot of what's happening, like some of the people you mentioned, like Jordan Peterson, an intellectual that says things that definitely get a rise out of certain people.
Yeah, he's a public intellectual.
Yeah, but nothing he has said is harmful to anyone, is anti-government, anti-person, sinful. I mean, any adjective you want to use. So the fact that somebody who just speaks intellectually and touches on issues that might be hot button issues can get his, you know, financial stream of income interrupted or removed
Right.
should scare the bejesus fuck out of everybody.
Right. No, I agree. It's terrifying. It's very totalitarian, how not only with the finance, but also the deplatforming of people
Yeah, same
because
thing.
their views are different. Yet, when somebody like Jesse Smollett does something preposterous like stage a hate crime,
Right,
he's
right.
back on he's going to be on that show, Empire.
They didn't cancel it. They're bringing it back.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
They're bringing him back. I know for sure that the whole team, the producers, the actors,
Yeah.
they're very much in support of him. And of course, what they have working for them is the fact that he was acquitted by the judge. Some would call an activist judge.
Oh, but he wasn't acquitted. He was given a pass. He was given a plea deal. So it wasn't 100%
Right.
acquittal. He was given a plea deal that he basically didn't have to admit responsibility. But in the interim, he still had to do like certain things, which is, that's pretty much unheard of in a court of law. I mean, you're either guilty or you're not guilty. I mean, you can plead no contest to something, but to actually not be able to, admit any responsibility or wrongdoing and get a plea deal like he got. I mean, I hope they still are doing some type of investigation into the prosecutor who chose to do that.
They
because-
are.
Good.
Right.
Because-
There is an investigation on that.
And that's, if someone, you talk in terms of people doing foul things and they just lose their job, that's something she should lose their job over. I mean, even the Illinois State Bar Association banded together, and almost every attorney wrote a letter to the state saying that, we don't support this decision and it goes against, all standard legal practices and whatnot. So it's just,
The Chicago police chief also is pushing to have that
is he?
to have that prosecutor investigated because that investigation cost
Oh, yeah.
a lot of
Well,
man hours.
I know Chicago, the police department's going after him civilly for the money.
Right.
So, but again, it's just such a good illustration of if you're on the left side, and I'm not taking sides. I'm a right down the middle type of person, but I'm also like an umpire. I call them like I see them.
Right.
And if you happen to be on the left side, you get bias support from the media and from people that are on your side, and
Right.
those people, especially prominent people that have a voice out to the media for their
Mhm.
issues. When they start doing bad things, they get protected. Where someone on the right side gets vilified, and it's BS. It's bullshit.
Vilified,
All
deplatformed,
of that.
have their Twitter account
Yeah,
deleted.
yeah, yeah.
So
Like if somebody in the Republican side of Congress said something like you alluded to earlier with Maxine Waters, that we should go after these people and borderlining, inciting violence and things like that. If someone on the right did that, oh my God, they'd be demanding they resign from Congress, and the pressure would probably make them resign. But she doesn't have to. Why? Because she's an African American woman and she's on the left. I mean, it's ludicrous, and it's
right.
ludicrous that people, stand for it and
Hmm.
they don't get more involved and make their leaders, not stand for it either.
Well, speaking of Maxine Waters, have you ever heard what Candace Owens has to say about her?
Well, yeah, you know what? Candace, I love Candace
Yeah, me
Owens, by the
too.
way. Yeah, I heard her comments that she said that Maxine Waters would score super, super low on an IQ test. And then she was debating, I saw her debate Dr. Cornell West,
Yes, on
who,
the Ingram angle.
yeah, and I've met Cornell West. I
Have
met
you?
him in
I
Minneapolis.
like him though.
Oh, he was such a great guy. I met him with Tavis Smiley up at Paisley Park,
Uh-huh.
Prince's place. Prince had them through for a week-long festival, and he was bringing all these different people in to have all these discussions about life and things. And great guy, really respect him. I
Me
think
too.
comes from, even though he comes from a very left place, he comes from a pretty good place. He's not a big race baiter like Jesse Jackson or
Right.
whatever. But yeah, Candace just was like Maxine Waters would score low on an IQ test, and he was like, "Listen, my sister, that's not a nice thing to say." And she was like, "Nope, nope. You make her take an IQ test, and I guarantee you, she's gonna score low on it."
Well, I mean, she kind of put a really interesting idea into my head when she talked about that. Well, first of all, she was bringing that up because Donald Trump said this is a very, very low IQ woman, and it was him who said it. And of
Uh-huh.
course, because again, she's African American,
Yeah,
and it's racist for him to say that in the eye of left wing or liberal
yeah,
America.
right.
But if she does have a low IQ, then
Yeah.
what are we supposed to do? Just because there's a history there that where anybody who isn't part of the majority, like a white person or I guess a white male,
Yeah.
white heterosexual Christian male, you can't say anything negative about them, even if it's true.
Yeah, I mean,
So with the IQ test thing, imagine this: people demand Donald Trump's tax returns.
yeah,
And I'm not just talking about Maxine Waters anymore. I'm talking about anybody, right, left, who is in a position, they have a pulpit to make to influence people.
uh-huh.
For better or for worse, right or wrong, and moreover, if they're profiting off of being on that platform
Oh,
and
yeah.
sitting in that pulpit,
Yeah.
what if somebody who disagrees with them? What if there was a law or an act that gave people who disagreed with that position the right to make them have a mandatory IQ test? They can continue saying whatever they want to say, but people have the right to know what their IQ actually
Well,
is.
it-
Could that be lawyered in somehow?
It probably could, but I mean, and I'm actually going to stand up for Maxine Waters now, because as much as I think she's kind of a dingbat, Americans have been electing low IQ politicians
Yeah, but
for the longest time.
That's
So,
why I'm saying it might be a good idea, not just for her, but for a lot of people,
well,
even Trump.
yeah, but you know what? Then that becomes a question of what really is an IQ test. I mean, has that ever really been established? I mean, what actually constitutes IQ, and who deems what IQ is? The Psychological Institute of America? I mean, what makes up your IQ? Is it that you can figure out real complex things with blocks and put them into the right holes in record
Right.
time, or you can remember big mathematical equations and formulas in your head, or I think there's all kinds of different types of IQ. So that, to me, that's a very fuzzy
Yeah.
thing to define in the first place. But
Because it's actually an average of various different fields of talent. So one of the main things that I think people are turning to instead of the general IQ test is the neuropsych assessment, which it analyzes you on you're given a battery of questions and tests like memory. So it'll start with one sentence. John and Zach went to the store, but then there's more sentences added into paragraphs and you have to repeat it back.
Oh,
And
God.
that memory element will test the memory side. Then there's going to be a math part. Then there's going to be a vocabulary part. Then there's going to be a relevance part, like somebody might ask you, who is Kanye West married to? Questions like about contemporary pop culture that
God.
test how astute you are on culture, for example. Who's the president? What year is it? Different things like that,
Oh
which
my
I
God.
remember my grandfather, when he developed Alzheimer's, had to, I was there next to him when he was given a neuropsych assessment. But it shows where you're talented in different areas. So a person could be a complete halfwit when it comes to numbers and a brilliant orator in the 99 percentile when it comes to, articulating oneself verbally.
Hey, isn't
So-
Kanye West married to Caitlyn Jenner? Isn't that who he's married to?
I don't even want to go there.
Well, my IQ might not be too strong in that area.
Oh, no. Maybe in that area you wouldn't do too well.
I
but
don't know. I don't know
I
if I
wouldn't
do
either.
good in the repeating thing either. I had one of those round Simon Says when I was a kid that was red, blue, green, and yellow, and it'd go red, green, blue, yellow, and you have to push it back. And then, it gets super complicated. I'm like, I don't know if I could do that.
Well, different talents for different occasions, I
Yeah,
guess.
different strokes for different folks.
hmm Well, on that note, John, I think we're going to wrap up for today. It was great learning about Bitcoin.
Yeah, it
and-
definitely was. Peter's a very interesting guy. It was great information.
And like always, we're going to, keep everyone posted on the 2020 midterm election. Every week, something is going to be happening new.
Oh, I'm sure.
I'm just waiting for the day somebody is on the left is going to say something different than what they said last time around. But
Well, you might be a pretty old fella by the time they do that, buddy.
gosh, I really want it to be interesting next time around, and I'm not really,
It will be. It'll be huge. It'll be interesting because the Donald's going to make it interesting.
I love his
I
different
can't
names.
wait till the election does start ramping up and he starts coming up with nicknames for everybody. Because he's going to have a nickname for every person on the left.
Yeah,
I mean, he already got Sleepy Joe.
Sleepy Joe,
What does he got for Bernie? Does he?
Bernie.
He's got one for Bernie. I know he does.
Yeah,
But it should be. That'll be the fun part for me. Just all the different nicknames because it's just
I'm calling it already. Beto O'Rourke is going to be Beta.
beta.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
He's a beta Democrat beta test.
yeah, Beta male.
Yeah, beta male. Yeah, he's a beta male.
Yeah. All right, John. Let's
All
wrap
right.
it up for today,
All
and
right.
we'll see you guys next week.
Yes, we will see you next week, same time, same place.
All right. Ciao.
All right, ciao, ciao.